So I think it's interesting. It's not doing a side-by-side shot this time. Well, that's fine.
Yeah, this is the first time that I've used Skype in quite a while.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I had to refamiliarize myself with how it works.
Definitely. So SnoopJedi, Mr. James Gerity.
Yeah, Brian Sonic Clang Klein. The first, it's been funny. I've been anticipating this. It's funny. We've never actually I don't think anybody
Nope.
from those days really has done this.
Nope.
It just wasn't a thing back then. I mean, you had Skype, I guess, video call, but it wasn't really a thing people did. Now it's just it's how I do my day job.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's second nature now, especially after COVID.
Yeah.
People
and I'm sure even beforehand you were very used to it because it's just part of your industry in a way. I mean, maybe not the video aspects of it, but I'm sure you're familiar with all the other parts of it.
Yeah, well, the manager that I have had for the last 6 years, he didn't really believe in work from home, but COVID sort of forced his hand.
I'm sure that was very persuasive.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Gaz and I have talked quite a bit about how, especially yesterday when we finally talked on video, that like we never had these tools back in the day, and yeah.
There was just a forum out there, and we just posted stuff, and that
exactly.
I get kind of maudlin and nostalgic for it sometimes. It's just like, wow, nobody does that anymore.
I know.
There are definitely there are forums out there, but it's it's not a dominant style. That's kind of a shame in some ways. But
I still think forums are a better means of online discussion than what we have today.
It's definitely a lot easier to have a historical record too.
Yeah.
The thing, because every if it's on Slack or Discord or something that stuff's just gonna disappear. It's gonna be lost to the sands of time.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that forums don't do that. But anyway, I'm sure that you have a prelude that you want to do here.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm hearing you through that microphone that's right in front of your face.
Let me double check my audio settings.
Because I'm hearing it you're
hearing my terrible webcam. What you're hearing.
I hope I sound okay. I just spent $90 on this new webcam.
It sounds a little crunchy, but I can definitely make out what you're saying.
Okay. I just ordered a desk mic stand thing, and I've got a really nice microphone that I'm not using right now because I don't have a way of mounting it.
Well, let's see here. Saying now. Oh, that's the camera. So yeah, it does say microphone coming through this. If I tap on the microphone, I hope that's not going to blow your ears out or anything. Just so if you can hear that. Are you getting that, or?
Yeah, I'm not even hearing that. That's weird.
Yeah, what if I give you a tap up here? You hearing that?
No, I'm not sure where you're coming through.
Yeah, so it may be that it's coming through here and it just sounds kind of weird. Is
okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, so I do have a list of questions. I don't want it to come off too stiff or anything. I'm not sure if you looked at the questions that I had.
I did, yeah.
Okay, cool.
And it's fun because it's I've actually been thinking about along the lines of these questions for I don't know years.
Wow.
So it's funny because just looking back on it, it's hard not to look back on a project this. I mean, it kind of grew legs, and I'm sure you were talking about that with Gaz.
Yeah.
Because he just was, doing something that he thought was a cool thing to do, and then it just kind of picked up momentum, and then all of a sudden we have a full episode.
Yeah.
Soundtrack and some, mods and stuff like that. And,
yeah. Well, it was interesting for me to learn the history, the beginning of the mod with Kazahana. Gaz and I can't figure out exactly how to pronounce the guy's name.
Yeah.
Is it Kazahana or Kazahana? I don't know.
I think Kazahana. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it sounds like it's a Japanese sort of thing. I guess that would be Kazahana, but I think I always thought it was Kazahana. If I was saying it to myself, reading the forum, I would.
Yeah. Yeah, if you Google that name now, it just it brings up like a bunch of Japanese art or Japanese anime.
Yeah.
So it was not easy to find him actually, but he doesn't really want to be involved in the documentary. So
Okay.
unfortunately, he's the one who started it. But yeah, it was interesting because he posted. He was just basically starting E1M1 to get used to the editor.
Yeah.
And he posted it online, and then Gaz messaged him, and he was like, "Hey, do you want someone else to do another level or two?" And then they got Blaster right around the same time, and then the three of those guys were kind of attacking the levels. I think they may have had. I can't remember if we had another level editor besides those guys, but it just sort of organically grew to the point where, well, we've got level editors. Now we need artists to do textures and modeling and animations, and then we need a musician, and yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
just so, and it's like it was back then. Everybody was so hungry for mods, especially mods
Oh, yeah.
that sort of appreciably change the nature of the game. And so it was. I remember that's how I got involved in the project. It was like, we need some beta testers for Classic Doom 3, and I was all over.
yeah,
All these different minds, like paying attention to what was going on over at Doom 3 World, checking on was it Doom 3 Files was what it was, doom3files.org or .com, I can't remember which. And yeah, I remember I joined and it was just like the beta test, and I remember I had found like the id Software had put in a really good QA feature into the Tech4 engine where you could like point, you're like looking at a problem in the scene, and it's like, oh, there's a corner here, I can see void. The mapper needs to know about it. So like maybe you can only see it when you're standing right here and looking in this direction. There's just a command, a console command though, that says when you're standing here and looking there, and you can send your mapper like a list of those. They'll just teleport you to those spots, like with those orientations.
Oh wow!
I was turbo geeking on Tech4, and I'm still a huge fan of the engine and all that.
Yeah.
So I remember I joined just to do that. I was a fan of the mod, I was a player, and then it was a beta test. And then at some point it was like, man, we need to do a menu. Like we need to look for somebody who knows how to do a menu. And it's like posted on it. I was like, well, hey, I've been beta testing, but like I sort of know some scripting stuff. Like maybe I'll take a crack at doing a menu. And then it just kind of continued to snowball from there. That's kind of what's cool about it, is that it wasn't necessarily that anybody had like this huge plan at any point. It was just people did a thing and fans responded to that thing, making changes. And then one day it was like, oh my god, I think we're done.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I didn't know some of that history. So I'm gonna go down some of these questions.
Yeah,
and some. I mean, I already introduced you, but I'd like to. So my first question is, what is your name, real and screen name? And so you just tell us your name and screen name.
So I am James Gerity, but better known by my internet alias SnoopJedi. And I'm a software engineer. Currently, I live in Boston. I used to do physics in a past life, but now I do software. And once upon a time, I did the menu for Classic Doom 3 and a little bit of engineering.
Awesome. I speaking of your screen name, I remember you had a website that was, I think, sort of like a portfolio of your work up to the point in time. And I remember cracking up because you had this screenshot where you had Googled your name, and Google asked, "Did you mean Snoop Dogg?" And you just had a caption that said, "Nope." and I thought to myself, okay, this guy has a good sense of humor.
No, I've completely forgotten about that, but you're absolutely right. Because that's the question that I still get to this day going around. And I've actually started dropping a little bit of it. It's now just SnoopJedi in a lot of places. But I don't want to get into any copyright violations or anything like that. No, it's funny because, yeah, it has absolutely nothing to do with Snoop Dogg. It was just like I was looking for something one day. I had like a completely different alias once upon a time. And that was when it was still really trendy on internet relay chat, where you would like put a pipe, the vertical pipe character, and then you'd put like a status. was like your status update. So you put something there like sleep or work. And it was like whatever my alias was. I don't even remember what it was. And then pipe, and then I would like put stuff there. And I think one day I was like watching Star Wars. I just put Jedi there. Or no, sorry, I was snooping for something. I was looking for something. I put snooping, and then yeah, I guess that stayed for a little while, and then I put the Jedi. And I was like, ooh, like that's got like a kind of a cadence to it, and it's completely nonsensical. Yeah, I'm gonna make that my alias. It's just sort of stuck. But yeah, I completely forgot about. I did have like. I think I was a little annoyed about it. For now, it's just funny, and I get people are like, and, you know, it's just like flattering. It's like, oh my gosh, I accept the honors. But no, yeah, back then I was like, it would kind of annoy me. Like, that's not where my name comes from, but it's too stupid of a story to tell anybody.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was telling Gaz the story of my screen name, and it has nothing to do with Sonic the Hedgehog. It has nothing to do with Sonic Youth. It has nothing to do with Sonic Mayhem. It was just, it organically came together, sort of like yours. You had one part and then you had another part. For a while, my nickname was Clang because someone misunderstood or misheard me when I told them my last name, and they typed Clang. And I thought it was hilarious. Like, I really wish that I would have kept that thing that they typed. So for a while, like, my friends used to call me Clang. And then I was watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And, like, one of the really simple answers, like the $100 or $200 question, was, like, what does a jet, or what's the sound a jet makes when it flies overhead faster than the speed of sound, or something like that? And one of the wrong answers was Sonic Clang. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh man.
I loved that. So then that immediately became my screen name. And that was probably like 2001, 2002.
Yeah, well, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire right away puts that in its temporal place. That's funny because it fully formed came out of an answer. And I never even put two and two together and realized Clang. That's cool. Yeah. No, and that's sort of what's fun about doing this sort of retrospective, is just swapping stories like that.
Yeah.
We didn't, you know, I remember we did have like our little developers corner on the forum where only the only the people working on the mod could see, so we could discuss, you know, what's going on with this map, what's going on with the menu, what's going on with the engine code. But I guess we didn't do. Well, we definitely did do some social, like, just chit chat sort of stuff. But I guess we never talked about for
yeah, I think there was a lot that we didn't talk about because we were all just so laser focused on getting the mod done. And you know, like most of the guys, like you and I, are in the U.S. Like, we're 1 hour apart. That's rare. I'm definitely remembering now that I'm trying to schedule these calls.
Yeah, we definitely had. Yeah, I bet it's been a mess actually trying to get everybody to talk about it. But.
Yeah, the UK isn't terrible. One of the guys, I think, do you remember Guy Brave?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he is in Australia, I believe it is, and that's 12 hours ahead. Yeah. So when I schedule his, like, it's like the next day right now. Or no, not right now. By the time I would get home from work, it would be the next day over there. Yeah. So that's just going to be tricky to. So you already said you're from Boston. Have you always been in Boston? Were you there when we were working on the mod?
No, so I grew up in Maryland, about 20 minutes north of Baltimore, and at the time of Classic Doom 3, I was living in Maryland. I've sort of been a couple different places now. I was in Texas for a while doing the physics thing in grad school, and now I'm up here in Boston.
Okay, yeah, I thought I remember you being in Texas at one point, because we've been Facebook friends for a while.
Oh yeah. Probably about as long as we've been on Facebook. I think, like, not after Facebook got going, it tracked me. I think it was you tracked me down and
yeah. Because sorry, I have to. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think some guys in the team were just sort of, they were burned out on it, and it was something they did years ago, and like, for them, unless they play the mod, they're not reliving their work. But for me, I've got my music out there and people are messaging me all the time, and I've got, you know, you can go to Spotify and listen to my music anytime. You can go to YouTube and find my stuff.
Getting listened to all the time too on Spotify.
Yeah, I have 13,000 monthly listeners. It's
like that's
wild.
So cool. Like what
Yeah.
a cool legacy to come out of like we made this podcast. Like I listened to the soundtrack the other day. It's been a while since I listened to it. And I was like, this soundtrack kicks ass. Awesome. And I remember at the time, because it was like, you were working on them sequentially. So we heard like this, and then it was like, oh, the new one's done. Like here's the preview. Like he's still working on it. Like, he doesn't not happy with the drums or something, but like here it is. This is pretty much what it's gonna sound like. And that's really cool. And I think an interesting thing, because you have something that you can take away from the mod that stands on its own in a way that I think all the rest of the contributions, it's kind of hard to separate.
Yeah. So I think because of that, it's always been sort of like just fresh on my mind. Like I've never really completely stepped away mentally from the mods, so I'm always like, well, where are all the other guys now? And I think some guys have just melted into obscurity. I will never find them. It's unfortunate that I haven't been able to track down Blaster, because he and I were connected on Twitter for years. We were following each other and we messaged quite a number of times, and he's just gone now. I have no idea where he is.
Yeah, so. It's sort of a shame, because we were focused, and I remember that there was a discussion, and we wanted to give ourselves a name. We came up with Flaming Sheep Software.
Yeah.
I remember we had like a poll or something. We all had to vote like on a suggestion, and then I do distinctly remember we were talking about like, what are we gonna do next? Like, next, and like there was some interest in doing that, but I think everybody was experiencing that. We just finished this thing. We're all a little burnt out on. Let's step away for a while and just. But it's funny because I remember in some of those discussions about like what kind of thing would we build. We were having this discussion about how could you revisit the area that you had been to before, but it's like slightly different now. And like I remember thinking, how can we stash a flag in the map to turn objects on and off, so that like back to this map, but this map, but it is. It's funny to look back on that, and every game is open world now. So like, this is just like what game designers are doing. But it was kind of not as much of a thing back then. I mean, people were definitely doing some of it, but it's really funny to look back on. No, it's a shame though that you've had trouble tracking people down a little bit. Because, you definitely are. I think the organizational nexus of Classic Doom 3 at this late stage, just because of that connection.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I've been carrying the cdoom flag for a while.
No, I'm all for it, man. You've been representing out there.
Cool. Well, I hope I'm a good ambassador. So, just curious, what was your background gaming wise before joining the cdoom team?
Oh man, I think I used the word turbo geek earlier, and I would bring that, invoke that again. I played just everything, man. I've always loved games. Actually, my background is blurry here, but this computer that's sort of on the bench, turn that blur off. This is actually this teeny tiny here, but this is a little like electronic bench.
Okay.
This is a 1984, I believe this model is manufactured. K-Pro. This is a like 3 megahertz or something computer. The Z80 16-bit computer is old. Started being a geek on this thing.
Wow.
If we had any games on this thing. This was my dad. But yeah, from then I played just everything, man. I played stuff on DOS. Obviously, I played just tons and tons of Doom. I never actually had a copy of Doom. Like as a kid growing up, getting into my gamer background, I guess, Classic Doom 3. I never had a registered copy, so I just played the shareware episode.
Oh,
and I played the shareware episode again and again and again. So good. So that was kind of funny coming into it. didn't do it later because it was like, well, good, we're not doing any of the other stuff because I don't know the other episodes.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I was sort of in the same boat. I had the shareware for a while, and then I finally decided to go to Best Buy and see if they had the full version. And I remember going home and thinking, oh, finally I can play the first episode and not die at the end. I can get to see what happens at the end of the first episode. And then I realized, oh, you still go into that room and die. And I remember being kind of disappointed by that. But then also, once I got to episode 2, I realized they kind of front loaded all the best maps into the shareware. Because in my opinion, the other episodes aren't as good. The level design is not as solid.
Really?
Yeah. So in my opinion, I mean, I think because they're trying to like replicate this journey through hell. Yeah. And I just don't think that engine lent itself very well to that.
They definitely squeezed everything that they could do out of it. Yeah, it's funny though that you say that they front loaded, because I remember there was it for the 20th anniversary, I think was it with Devolver? John Romero did something where he sat down and discussed level design, and I think it's Devolver Digital did a series called like Dead Play or something like that for the 20th or 21st anniversary of Doom. They talked to him about what it was like to make Doom, he's done stuff of that nature. But this one was really good because they talked about how they had learned, because they'd been in the business for so long, and you asked me about my gamer background. I played all of their stuff before id Software wasn't a thing. Like I played a lot of Apogee Software games. I loved those games.
Wow, that's so cool.
And so like then id Software was just like naturally I was still a fan of that because it's like, yeah, they made all the stuff that I remember really. Crystal Cave, Monster Bash. Oh my God, Monster Bash. Very platform. And it's weird because I don't remember Doom like coming out. I was a little too young for that. But I definitely was aware of a lot of, I think, the history of the people who grew up with Doom. Quake weren't. It was kind of weird. I'm in that weird age bracket. Legacy, you want to call it. But he talked about, John Romero talked about how they worked on the levels, and they actually worked on E1M1 was the last thing that he worked on, because it was the first thing that players were going to see. And he said something like, you do all the other levels so that you learn the trick, and then you do your level. And I think that's just sort of accepted as sort of, maybe, it doesn't work exactly like that, but I think it's sort of accepted that, yeah, you do have to kind of put the polish in a counterintuitive order, because you only get one chance at first impression.
Right.
Target game. But anyway, yeah, so I was a Turbo Geek, super fan, id Software and all that. So, I played Quake. I didn't have a full copy of that either. I just played the shareware. Quake 2, I think I missed out on entirely. I don't know why. Quake 3, I played some of it, but it was a deathmatch game. And then it was quiet for a while. And they were raking in money, of course, because they were licensing technology. I was aware of that. My very first modding experience was on Soldier of Fortune, which is not a great game, but it's interesting, and the plot was okay. But it was based on Quake 2, and so you could open up the Radiant editor and like make maps. I remember I was making this stupid, blocky, terrible map. It was kind of, and I'm like, oh my God, I can take my games apart and start doing stuff. And so then when Doom 3 came out, I was like, I gotta have it. Definitely gotta have it. Finally gonna get one of these retail releases of Doom. Game from my childhood coming back. And then it was just modding exploded. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah. So interesting connection. Did you realize that you and I both worked with Hexam on his executive quarters level?
Yeah, because you wrote the theme for Classic Doom was for that level, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like, I think that's probably the deepest like the lore of classic Doom 3. That's probably one of those really deep cuts. Is the theme song is like from this other thing that you had. Like, we can just use that for this.
Yeah, well,
like, we didn't know what to do. Like, the original Doom didn't have a menu song. Like,
yeah. And well, I wrote it. I wrote it for his level, and I was working on it for a while because that that song wasn't easy for me to write. Like, I wanted, like, he had a very specific song in mind. There's a Tool song. I can't remember the name of it, but he said specifically, I want a song that sounds like this Tool song. If I could, I would use that song. So I listened to the song one time. I had never heard it, and I just listened to it once, and then I just kind of walked away from it. And I just tried to remember the feel, and I sort of started kind of like writing parts in my head. And at a certain point, I picked up my guitar and just started playing around with some riffs. But the arrangement took quite a bit. Like, I remember specifically, I recorded little chunks of ideas, and I literally cut and moved things around to come up with an arrangement that I liked, and then I recorded it that way. But the thing that happened was he went silent.
Yeah.
Like, I had this song for him, but
you were basically done with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was ready to go.
It in my opinion, it was done. But I had sort of crafted it based on his feedback. Like, there were things that I wanted to do with the song that he didn't like. So I was just sort of crafting a version that he liked.
Yeah.
But then he went totally quiet. Like, he wasn't responding. As far as I was concerned, the project went dead, and I loved the song, and I wasn't just going to let it die. Yeah, so then when I joined the team, I brought it, I posted it, and people were like, well, it's not that, it doesn't sound that good. And I was like, well, what do you think I could add? And people gave me some feedback, and I brought back some of the things that I originally had wanted. And I remember I was playing with my keyboard one day and just found this really cool sound. And that's the beginning, where it just has this low rumble, and then it starts in with the drums.
Oh God, it was so good to hear that. Because all of the music that I heard from that soundtrack, I heard the theme song by far the most, because I was spending a lot of my time working on the menu.
Yeah.
The game up, but like not really playing them.
That is so funny.
Once you've gone through those levels, a certain number of times, it was like, okay, I know what those levels are like. I know them pretty well. Which isn't to say that they're not wonderful, but the music, I didn't have a choice, but I was just hearing it again.
Yeah.
Because I was working on it once it was plugged into the menu. No, I love those drums coming in.
That's cool.
Really, really subtle. And it matches up, I think, really well to the Doom 3 theme, which is something that is cool, especially because it was for this map, and he like had a very specific thing in mind. It's almost that in the end, what it ended up being was the main menus just have that same, like, the music comes slow, and then eventually starts to
Yeah, I remember Kazahana. He had disappeared for a while because he was just busy with college. Yeah. And when he finally came back, he played the mod, and he posted saying he thinks the first bug people are going to report is they can't get off the menu because they can't stop listening to the music. I thought that was pretty funny.
No, yeah.
Anyway.
It's actually awesome that you only listen to the Tool song once, because like you nailed the freaking Tool sound. Every time I hear that song, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is Tool. This isn't Tool. This is Sonic Clang. There's Tool.
Yeah, and some people have said, this is a ripoff of this such and such song from Tool. I'm like, yeah. I literally was that was my brief. Yeah, my brief was, I would like this song, but I can't, so make me a version I can use.
But it's funny though that like that's how it ended up happening, because like Doom did that too. There's all the comparisons out there of like 1M1 is no regret.
It isn't, but it sounds kind of like it. Uh-oh, my headset just died. Hang on, let me switch.
Well, you suddenly got really clear.
Oh no, was I using that terrible headset as my microphone?
I think so.
Oh my God, hang on, let me plug this in here. All right. I am not hearing you, and that's because computers. Give me a second here. I have had just the worst. I'm on my work computer right now, and it's not great when I'm trying to switch between devices like that. Out, digital out. Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I think I maybe
Okay.
just had my my sound turned down. Okay, great. I'm super glad that
Yeah.
I must have been using the like chintzy little microphone that's in these things, which I never want to use, but they have pretty good output. And there's no wire, so. But I only recently remembered that I have these. So back to wires.
Yeah. Oh, I'm using my studio headphones, and there's a wire. I'm like super not used to this. Anyway, yeah, that's.
Yeah, we were talking about executive quarters, and the theme song, and the level. Yeah, I knew when he, because he showed up like whenever he resurfaced. I guess he showed up on, I guess it would have been Doom 3 World, and he must have posted somewhere, about like, hey, how do we, like, I'm looking for somebody to help me script. He had the boss at the end of his level, and he wanted it to be like an arcade kind of, not an arcade fight, but he wanted a health bar. I remember distinctly what it was that he wanted. He wanted a health bar, and that's what I worked on with him for that. And I think it was tied to somebody, I can't remember. Jezebod was the guy's nickname, or was that one of the Flaming Sheep people? It's all such a mess back then.
Yeah.
I really wish actually that Doom 3 World hadn't gone away and I had those posts, because I had like 1,500 posts on that forum, and I would love to go back and read like, what was I doing on that? What was going on that forum? That must be such an interesting time capsule. My understanding is there is a copy of this database somewhere in Germany. Bernard has a copy.
You can go to the web archive, like the Wayback Machine, and see some of it.
Yeah, I think I've done some of that and been able to dig up a few of the posts.
I think I had 17,000 posts.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I was there all the time.
Yeah, me too. That was like what I did was like, in the morning, I'm gonna check Doom 3 World. In the afternoon, I'm gonna check Doom 3 World. Like, are there any? Oh my God, there's 2 new posts on the engines, on the scripting engine, and I remember engine and scripting were the ones I paid really close attention to, because like Doom 3 blew me away, man. Because I said I'd been doing a little bit of modding, but I'd never done anything like touching the engine. And the scripting just wasn't very good in earlier games. I think some of the Quake games kind of had it.
Quake 2 it a little bit. Quake 1 did.
And just a very, very different approach.
Quake 1 actually had, I think it was called like Cubase, or maybe not Cubase, but Q. Oh man, it's
like
been a long
Q
time.
Script or something like that,
or something like that. Yeah.
I only recently discovered, because of a compiler book I actually have sitting on the table behind me, that I've just gotten into for professional reasons. Like, oh, this seems like a good book to learn about how a C compiler gets put together. That's what John Carmack did for Quake 3, was he wanted like to have the compiler for his scripts. All of the scripts, and like some of the engine stuff in Quake 3 actually runs in a virtual machine. Like, it's not running the native code on your computer. It's a little virtual machine inside of Quake 3. And that makes like the net code really easy, and it makes writing a port of those things really easy, because you only need to port the virtual machine, not every single script that you wrote for the game or whatever. Anyway, just a fun tidbit from that. But I remember those I was really into, and I was just like, it blew me away, because Doom 3 came out, and it was like 24 hours later the duct tape mod came out. And I remember that I was a Slashdot reader back then, slashdot.org, the website with the impossible name to tell anybody to, because they think this is Slashdot. And I remember that was like easily the top of Slashdot, and the guy's like server went down because it was getting the hug of, the hug of death. And this is well before we started doing like cloud load balancing and all that crap. and it just blew me away. And then I like looked into how things like that worked, and it's like text files. And it's like, are you kidding me? These are text files. I can just open them and change a thing, and the game changes. That is so cool. It's the first time I'd ever really seen that in a game. Certainly a game that looked as good and played as good as Doom 3 did. And I was at that point I was hooked. I found the modding community. I got into it. Anyway, I remember somebody on there was doing like an RPG system. They were trying to write an RPG. They did write an RPG, I think, in Doom 3, and they wanted to do like shops, and they wanted to do enemy health bars. And I had worked with them a little bit to get like shops working, because Doom 3 was they introduced GUIs.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, let's put a GUI on everything.
Yeah, right.
And honestly, it holds up really well in the game. Like the game is well designed around that technology, although it kind of looks a little quaint. And anyway, I remember, I had figured out you could put a sprite above the player or whatever entity you wanted to have a health bar for or display, and then rotate it so that it's facing the player. And this is all stuff that a game developer is going to be like, yeah, of course that's how you do that. Like that's the obvious way to do that. But I was in high school, like I was like 15 or 16 or something at the time, so like this was like this was a pretty new concept to me. And once I had gotten it working, I guess I must have posted it on the forums, and I think he reached out to me and was like, dude, can you do this for my boss, for my like level? Like this is it, what you just did, but like, can you make it big as hell to fit over my big boss and put it in this level? I was like, yeah, dude, absolutely, I can do that. And so that one didn't move or anything. It was just pinned to the wall, because it was kind of the boss had his back to the wall and you were just shoot at the big guy. So that one didn't rotate or move or anything. And I remember maybe it was a little tricky to get it looking good from every part of the boss fight arena, because like it didn't look good at extreme angles or something. But no, it's funny that we've worked on two things together.
yeah, and I actually had forgotten that you worked on that until I was just like researching. Gaz called it digital archaeology. Researching everything that I've been, wanting to do with this documentary, and I was just kind of going down memory lane, and I looked up Hexam's executive quarters level, and I was like, oh my god, SnoopJedi is credited.
Because it was, it wasn't a big deal or anything like that, because it was the story there was Hexam's Zach, and this map that people had been anticipating was out, and like, oh, by the way, if you like are really closely paying attention, like I got a credit in there, but it was I had already like done the work or something, so it wasn't a big deal to help him. And I knew who he was and like what this map was because of the connection to cdoom. So I was like, yeah, absolutely, no problem, dude.
That's cool. Yeah, and the difference there was that we were both working with him. I was communicating with him, and you were communicating with him, but we weren't communicating with each other. It wasn't a collaborative team. Unlike Classic Doom 3, which was everyone's in a forum talking.
Yeah.
So, all right, you already talked about your role on the team. I'm wondering what the state, because I'm trying to piece together the timeline.
Sure.
I'm wondering if you remember the state of the project when you joined, and then how long you worked on it.
There were definitely maps missing when I joined. I don't know what exactly that was. I want to say my like knee-jerk reaction is I want to say that it was somewhere up through map 4 or map 5 had been completed. Because there was definitely, the reason that I joined was definitely like checking out these maps that would be coming down the pipe, and seeing like, are there problems with these maps? That was how I got involved as a beta tester. So I'm very sure that the maps weren't done. And even once I was working on other things, I think the maps weren't done. But I don't remember much else about the status of the project during that beta tester phase. I do remember then that at some point it was starting to pick up enough polish that it was like, we need to change the menu so that people know this isn't Doom 3, like that this is classic Doom 3. Which, looking back, it's almost kind of funny that like all of that trouble we went to for the main menu, because I remember I was first of all, I was a teenager. Second of all, I was just like turbo geek, really excited to be doing this stuff in a video game, like changing it and modding. And like, so I had this like crazy set of ideas for what the main menu would be like, and like we'd do all this. And it's like, I think I showed off a prototype of it, and people were like, what are you doing, dude? It's a menu, like it's not an art piece or something. Throw that away and start over. And I was crestfallen. I was like, no.
Oh, that's so funny.
But everybody was super right, because it was not good. It got in the way. It was confusing. And then we ended up going with what we did eventually have, which was sort of like the Doom 3. You know, he had Mars in the background. He had the Doom guy doing his thing, sort of faded in there, and then just the logo. And I guess we changed up the appearance of it a little bit, but
yeah, and we have the skull with the glowing eyes on the side.
Yeah, I remember the skull. I think the skull is probably like the main thing that survived the that original concept of like, yeah, it's gonna be like the demon summoning circle. You know, when the demons would teleport in Doom 3, they'd have that summoning circle, like a pentagram would appear, and then they're in the game. And I remember thinking that was cool as hell. That like that was how it worked. Like that's how, because you know, you're teleporting monsters in. It's not a very sophisticated way to do it, but it totally fits Doom's theme of like, these are coming directly from hell to invade your world. And like, yeah, you get a little pentagram thing, totally works. So it was like, that was the centerpiece, and then all of your menu options were radially like on the circle around that, and there were like candles and stuff. It was not good. Do you remember this terrible menu?
I think I probably only looked at it once, and then the team smacked you down, and I don't think I ever saw it again.
It was so bad. And like it was, but it was like my attempt to, because Doom 3 scared the hell out of me. Like I remember like I remember being legitimately scared of the game. There was like when you have to like send or not send the distress call. And you're in the little booth or whatever, and then you do it, and then like an imp jumps on the window or something like that. I remember when I was playing Doom 3, that happened, and I had to stop playing the game. I was like, that's enough Doom 3 for today. I'm going to go outside and like enjoy some sunlight or something. This is too scary. And it was the middle of the day. It was not like I was playing it late at night in the dark or whatever, and it was still scary. So I think I wanted to capture that horror aesthetic in the menu. And I think that in the end, that skull is the only thing that survived of that like ill-fated, terrible menu that I had in my head. Like maybe it could work. But
do you by any chance know if you have any screenshots or anything from that
I don't think so. No,
that would be funny.
It would have only been. I have. No, that computer's not that old. I was gonna say I think I have. I still have a Core 2 Duo machine from roughly that era, but I think that was a little more of a college machine for me rather than something I would have used for the Doom 3 stuff. No, it's a shame, but that's I'm fine with it because it did not look good. I my memory of it isn't very good, and I'm sure it's worse than my memory.
Well, I can appreciate the fact that you were trying to do something artistic and fits with the theme of the game. I can appreciate that. And but like
the skull sort of worked, and it was also it was enough of that on top of there was a skull in the original menu, and so like that worked. That scratched that itch plenty, and I still had a lot of fun with it. And frankly, I wouldn't even consider it a mistake. It's just what game development is like. It's like you're going to do a thing, and then it goes into critique. And if everybody says this isn't it, they're probably right and you're probably wrong. And somehow I was keyed into that and realized, okay, if they're all saying this isn't it, I need to scrap this and start over. But it taught me all the stuff that I think I needed to know later when I worked on the secrets menu, because that was a big missing thing for sure when I joined the team. And then I had done the beta thing, and then I was working on the main menu. For a while there, I was the menu guy. Like Snoop, Jedi did the main menus. And then at a certain point, there was enough polish. Like the maps were looking good, the music was pretty much in place, and I think we even had some models at that point. And then it was like, okay, there's still things missing. You're playing this, and you're like, this is cool. I'm playing the Doom maps inside of Doom 3. And that wasn't what we were trying to do, right? Like we were trying to create Doom again. And so it was like the movement was all wrong, and we didn't have any secrets, and the music. I think actually we had a huge problem with the music too, didn't we? Because there wasn't a way to do music globally.
Oh,
on a
global
level.
music, yeah.
Yeah, and I think like I can't remember if I had to write a patch for that or not, but I remember these little problems of like secrets and running and um, uh, the music were things that we knew we had to go into the game code and change, and nobody was like, "Well, I'll do that." And I think we weren't really looking to add another person that was going to do that. So I was just like, "Well, I've been reading a lot of Doom 3 World and poked around at the engine a little bit. I'll give it a shot." And it turned out that there weren't as many modifications as we really might have feared that we needed. Like I remember the music was really straightforward to get working, and the secrets definitely required some trickery. And I think what we ended up doing is like there were separate triggers that they just had to add to the secrets, the mappers. And then when you stepped inside of that trigger, that's when you got, the secret tick. But I think the screwing around with the menu worked out because I ended up doing the secret screen too.
Okay.
And definitely that same like, yeah, I'm gonna like make this like an artistic like, but you have to do that for the end screen, right? Because the end screens in the original Doom are so cool.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
we probably should have just done, a map and like updated it or something, but whatever. We ended up with what we did, which is like kind of like an aliens sort of thing, like a display screen, get the UAC logo, and like I think there's a heartbeat indicator on there.
Exactly. Yep.
I had too much fun with it.
Yeah, come to think of it, I never really thought about it, but we didn't have that transition screen showing you are here blinking.
Yeah.
I never really thought about that.
In hindsight, it's a huge omission.
Exactly.
We should have done that. Like that. That's what grounds you in this world of you're this Marine going around this Martian base, like kicking demon ass. It should have been a map.
I was recently watching an interview with Tim Willits, and I think it was from NoClip, and he was talking about how John Carmack used to say teleporters are a crutch for bad level design, and then Tim Willits took it one step further and said slipgates, talking about Quake, slipgates were a crutch for bad game design.
Ooh.
But like in the Doom days, we couldn't have continuous worlds.
Yeah.
Like now, like you play. Oh my God, we're playing the latest Uncharted game. I can't remember the name of the game, but it's like the two protagonists are women, and it's mind blowing. Yeah. Like this world is just wide open. You can look across and it looks like a jungle with mountains, and you can go there. You can just get in a Jeep and go way over there. We had to have discrete chunks.
Yeah.
So we had to.
I remember when we were that discussion I mentioned of like what's Flaming Sheep going to work on next. Like we were talking, I think there was talk about doing like a ninja game, kind of doing like a Tenchu sort of thing or something, but integrating some of these ideas. And looking back, it's really cool to look back at that and say, like, yeah, I think it's fair to say we were starting to think about some of the stuff that eventually turned into this open world. Obviously we would still have level transitions because you just didn't have the resources for it. Systems weren't powerful enough to hold all of that, and we didn't have the technology to load things in and out, dynamically streaming in and out. But it was, God, what a sweet time in game technology, because we were right on the cusp. Because I remember on IdTech 4 we got Enemy Territory Quake Wars not too long after we finished Classic Doom 3. That came out, and that was the birth of Mega Texture. John Carpenter's, not John Carpenter's, John Carmack, also a big fan of John Carpenter. Get my JCs mixed up sometimes. But that was sort of getting at some of those ideas now, like, can we do texture generation on the fly so that we have all of the textures loaded in the memory, but we can still have this big world because the different combinations of the textures are what makes this place feel different from that place. And that was a huge flaw, I think, even in the outdoor sections of Doom 3. I think there were some places where you could kind of get up onto something and you could definitely see like some texture repeating. Because that was just how, like, if you were on like a big field or something like that, like you had your grass texture, you did your best to make it tile, and you applied that texture to the entire whatever field, mesh, or brush. And if you, God forbid, you no clip and go up above the level, you're going to see all of that repetition very clearly. So
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was a sweet time too, because I remember. That was the other thing I remember about the Doom 3 times, like this whole chapter of my life that weirdly revolves around Doom 3. Half-Life 2 came out, right? A year later or however, I can't remember what the exact release dates are, but I remember on the Doom 3 World forums, there was like a couple places and you go into that thread and there's going to be a flame war about Half-Life.
Yeah.
And there was the Half-Life 2 people and the Doom 3 people. It's like, no, this is going to be the future. And no, that's going to be the future.
Yeah.
Because this is still the days when like engine licensing was a big, I guess it's a big deal now, but it's like you license it internally. It's your thing that you're using in your big studio, or you're using something free or something you wrote yourself. Half-Life 2 was, I think, the start of what you were just describing, the open, like seamlessly sort of transitioning, because you still got that little loading thing, but it was just a little bit of text right in the front of the screen, and then you were there. They were pretty.
See, the interesting thing is the way they did it was totally new, where you would like go through a door that you couldn't go back through, or you would pass a point that you couldn't go backwards, and in that point, or they would have like a U, like a tunnel that you had to go like this
to hide all of that loading.
And when you're going there, it would load, and when you'd come out, it would look like you're in the same level, but maybe there's a chasm that you can't get back to where you just were, and that's all you see. It doesn't have everything behind it.
Yeah.
So it was just mind-blowing the way they did that. It wasn't like press exit, go back to the menu.
Yeah.
Here's the next level.
And that was Doom. I think maybe this is an underappreciated thing about the original Doom, is that like that it was an elevator sort of thing, right? Like you got in and there was that switch in there. Yeah. And I've never thought about this, but is it like supposed to be a train or something, like transit from one station to another? That map screen, and that's the thing that got us off on this discussion. Man, what were we thinking?
I don't know.
Why didn't we use the map screen? That was such an oversight. But before we had anything, we had just level transitions. Like you just got to the end of one level and then you started the next. So before that screen existed, there was nothing at all. So it was still definitely an improvement when we added that. And I just don't know why it. Maybe we didn't have the art resources we needed or something, or maybe nobody thought, or that we needed it.
I wouldn't be surprised if we had a discussion about it. I'm just not remembering.
We must have had. There had to, because if nothing else, we had to be prepared for what people were going to make of it. Yeah. And we had all the people who were playing it and like active on the forums and stuff. And God, just thinking back to what it was amazing to be the top downloaded mod. That was so cool.
Oh, it was amazing.
And I felt like I was like, I have absolutely no claim to this because I didn't do any of the things. People are not downloading this for my main menu. People are not downloading this for secrets code or the end screen or whatever. But they are downloading it, and my work is in there. Mm-hmm. And that was such a cool feeling. But it also created this burden of there is an expectation out there. There are going to be expectations out there about what we are making. On top of this homage to this game that all of these people have played and have fond memories of and have hundreds or thousands of hours in, like, what are they going to make of this thing? I remember we were working on the chainsaw. Like the chainsaw in the original kind of like pulls you in towards the enemy, so you definitely like. And I remember we were working on that. We had our chainsaw, and there was a way to do it with scripting. I remember I came up with a way where you could like figure out if you were close enough to an enemy and you were definitely pointing it at an enemy and firing, we could like give the player a little boost. But it wasn't as good as what Doom did, and so you would kind of like glide past the enemy, I think, sometimes. And like it wasn't very good, and we we didn't think to polish it, so we ended up dropping it. But I remember we were thinking about those little things, just thinking like we have to make sure we nail that experience. But for some reason, not the map. We must have had a discussion. We must have had a discussion about it.
You know, speaking of the chainsaw, I was just recently playing through the mod. I got it working, which I was just
sweet.
And I was in heaven. Like I had to rebuy the game on Steam because my copy here. I don't know if you can even see that. That it doesn't.
Absolutely.
I can't get it working.
Oh,
but
that's such a bummer.
I needed on the back. There's a code. If you can see that, and I needed to enter that to play our mod. So I think we'll talk about what we can do to resolve that later. But what was I thinking about the chainsaw? Shit. So I was recently playing it. I didn't like the chainsaw. Oh right. Now I remember. That just led me to another thought. Another thing that I really wish we had taken out was the extreme flashback, or
when you take damage.
That to me, the thing they got right in Doom 2016 is you feel like a badass.
Yeah.
You push forward and you run at the enemies. In Doom 3, you're the
Doom Slayer. You're going to kill all of the. Yeah, it's like, you're a badass again.
Yeah.
But they weren't going for that in Doom 3 at all.
No, Doom 3, you were constantly running backwards. You were constantly running away backwards from monsters. Because if they got close to you, you're getting, flung around. And you couldn't see. And you felt like a little weakling. Yeah. And I really wish. I don't think we had any discussions about it. I just think we just didn't even.
I don't think it was on our radar. Yeah.
No, but that probably would have been a simple 1-0 kind of thing.
Yeah, that would have probably just been even it being years since I've looked at that code. I'm thinking like, I can in my head I can see what there's probably an if clause of some sort that calls knock the player's view and then it comes back over time naturally. It's probably like a 5-line change or something if I had to guess. I'm curious now. I'm gonna have to go dive into the port source code.
Yeah,
or the original.
I wish someone would have thought about that because I think that would have made our mod feel more classic, and I think we would have. Because I still, when I was playing it, found myself just running backwards. I'm constantly running backwards. And just a side note.
Are you picking up external noise right now?
A tiny bit. Is someone vacuuming or something?
No, I think it's a plane or a truck or something like that.
Okay.
But it sounds like it's fading. So I'm never sure. This is such a better microphone than you just heard what what I used to sound like to my teammates and stuff. And then I finally got this thing. And oh my God, thank you for not using that other.
I'm a little sad that the beginning of our interview sounds so bad. I thought it was the internet connection or something.
I'd be happy to re-record that stuff if you want, so you can cut it in post.
Yeah, maybe let's circle back later, and I want your real name and screen name and just try to recreate that. But I was curious, so let me just read the questions that I've got. I'm gonna internally read here. Totally separate from my questions that I have. You mentioned that you were a teenager?
Yeah,
I didn't realize.
I was in high school at the time, and it's like one of those things like nobody knows you're a dog on the internet. Like nobody knew, unless I told them. Nobody knew that I was. Yeah, I was in. I think Doom 3 came out, and I was just entering high school because it came out in 2004 or 2003, whatever it was. Anyway, I remember, like I told that story about, I was so scared I had to turn this off. I remember also telling a teammate of mine, I was on the cross country team, and I remember we were at practice, and it must have been during the summer practice. And I was telling my teammate, I was like, yeah, dude, this game's so scary. I had to turn it off. But yeah, I was just this geeky kid in high school reading /dot and getting into Doom 3 and doing modding and stuff. So yeah, when I wasn't doing those things, I was screwing around with Doom 3, playing it, making stuff with it. Yeah, actually, it's I'll share a story because the fact that I was a high school student when we were working on it, I was kind of getting ready to think about like, what am I going to do in college, and like, what am I going to do for a career? And so I had toyed with the idea of like, I could do games. And cdoom was kind of my experiment in that, to see what if I liked the process. Like it wasn't, when I originally decided to become a beta tester or decided to work on it, that wasn't the way I thought of it. But the longer it kind of went on, I was kind of, okay, like this can kind of be, this is a dry run. And even more than just for game development, it was also just for like what working on a team, working on software sort of stuff would be like. And the funny thing is, my conclusion at the end of all of it, because I think I was just experiencing that we finished the project, we're a little burnt out, was I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So, and then I had this crisis of like, what am I going to do with my, because I was like, I'm going to go to school for computer science and I'm going to be a, computer touching weenie. Which is funny because that's, what I do now. But at the time it was like, oh, like I need a backup plan. So I ended up doing physics instead, which is also a thing I have a connection to Doom 3 about, because right before I took my first physics course in high school, because again, I was a high school student, somebody on the Doom 3, there were two things that really were physicsy on the Doom 3 world forums. Somebody wanted to recreate the centrifuge scene from 2001: A Space Odyssey, like you're walking around and like the gravity is changing on you. And so I remember that was like a mega thread. That was like a 20-page thread of all of us just desperately trying to figure out how gravity worked in the engine and whether we could do that. And looking back, you obviously can, because Prey came out later and like did exactly that sort of thing where you had gravity changing on the fly. I don't think we ever really got it working. That and something about the way forces were applied, and like you could apply two of them and you would add them and you'd get a resultant force. And I remember I was just about to enter my first physics course. I sent my teacher an email to like tell him about all this vector forces stuff that I had learned because I was screwing around with this video game.
Yeah.
And God love him, he was just like, that's awesome. Like that's such a cool, cool thing. So in the end, what I decided to do was go off to school and study physics. And then, came full circle now and do software. But yeah, that's just a little bit of perspective. You mentioned when you were saying like I had a website or something. Sorry if that noise is back.
Fine.
Because I was a high school student, because I was getting ready to go to college, and because I needed scholarships to go to college, I was putting together like my application packets. And I wrote this, it's only like a 3 or 4 page PDF, but I made this PDF of like an essay, I guess, of like, here's what I did and here's what I learned doing this. And I still have this. I still have a copy of this. And I included it in like my scholarship applications and stuff.
That's cool.
And it doesn't read well. Like my writing was not great. But I do remember I spent a lot of effort on the cover page. I'll have to send this to you. The cover page is, I must have posted it on the forums back then too. I was really proud of it. I spent a lot of time photoshopping a screenshot of your starting position in E1M1 in the original Doom and in cdoom, like photoshopping them so that they blended together. But they weren't the same size when I started. So like one of them had to be stretched or something. So it's a little janky, but I had a lot of fun doing that. I had a lot of fun with all of it because again, I was a high school student. Like this was just like, oh yeah, like I have the time disposable for this.
Yeah, it's amazing. Sure. You and I were in such different places in our lives, because I think I was. Hold on a sec. I am not good with math. So 2000. I was working on it mainly in 2005. So if I do 2005 minus 19, I was 27. I was 26 when I joined the team. No, it was 2005. I was 27. So I was 27 and married. And hi. My wife just walked through.
Yeah, don't look at me.
Hello, Miss Clang.
Anyway, that's not the wife that I had when I was working on cdoom. Words can't describe how much my wife at the time hated the mod, hated that I was working on it. Every moment that I was working on cdoom was a moment that I was ignoring her, despite the fact that she worked evenings and I worked during the day, and I made like 10 times what she made. She was working at a coffee shop for extra, money for bills and whatever. Anyway, long story short, she hated it. But I was describing to Gaz yesterday, it really ticked me off when there were certain members of the team that I didn't feel like they were pulling their weight, because here I am, like basically putting my marriage on the line. And I had been a part of teams in the 90s that, we got really cool progress, making a total conversion for Quake, and then like it just blew up.
Yeah.
Everyone just and I knew how precious it was. So I was 27. I did not know you were a teenager. I knew I was older. I was like the oldest guy on the team. And I think I brought a lot of like calming force, I hope.
I think you might have shared that perspective of, we have something really special here. We need to, take care to do, looking back on it now, I'm like, oh, we were doing project planning, project management. We were sort of trying to bootstrap that for ourselves, because when you're making a mod, like, you don't have a producer. You just have your teammates, and hopefully you're all on the same page if you share a vision. It's interesting. I guess the fact that we were making this homage to an original thing really helped, because everybody necessarily had to have most of a shared vision. There were definitely things we weren't agreeing on, but most of it was pretty much, we knew what we were going towards. Because without that, it probably would have fallen apart, just the way that you described from previous stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if we were doing something original and we didn't have all the eyes of the community on us, it probably wouldn't have gotten finished. But just like thinking back, it's a minor freaking miracle that we released 1.0 and basically on time. We were going for a December 10th release, because that was the anniversary of the original Doom, and we released the day before. Like, that's amazing. Like, yes, there were bugs and we had to go back in, and we continued working on it for like 7 months, because I think July of 2006 we released version 1.1. So we were kind of quietly working behind the scenes. And I don't remember like what your level of involvement in that was. I know my level of involvement was just basically lending advice, lending my perspective, whatever. I was still active at that point.
Yeah, I remember you were definitely there, and posting on the forums and giving feedback on things. And I think, pardon me, my hazy recollection, I think you were probably the closest thing we had to a producer or product management sort of thing, because I do sort of remember there being something like that, some discussion like that of like the meta of the project and trying to keep it together. But oh man, you just saying like you're saying like we released an on time, and then you said 1.1, and I'm just like, oh my god, because I forgot that we did like, it was a 1.0 1.1, but then like the final was 1.3.1. Yeah, I remember that very, very clearly, because we had 1.3 and then there was like a bug or something we had to fix, and I think it was mine. And I think there was something like wrong with the engine code where we had to patch it for 1.3.1.
Yeah, Gaz actually wanted me to talk with you about this, because we were sort of all working as a team up to 1.1, and one of them, it was like a year after 1.1, we did like a 1.2 or 1.3. No, what 1. Yes. Okay, so a year after 1.1 was released, and working on 1.3. So I think you worked on 1.3. But what was interesting to me is after 1.1, like that was it for me. I checked out. I was, as far as I was concerned, like my job was done.
Yeah.
And I had moved on, and I had only kind of caught murmurs here and there that you guys were working on some bug fixes and you were going to work on a new patch. And the way Gaz described it was, you just sort of took it upon yourself, because Doom 3 had been patched, and
Yes, that's what it was. You're
yeah,
absolutely right.
it introduced a bug into our mod, and so I think you took it upon yourself. So do you remember any of that?
Yeah, now that you're saying that, I think I probably did sort of unilaterally update the mod and basically bump the version number because I think it wasn't even that it introduced a bug. I think it was that we had to rebuild the mod and there may have been code changes associated with that. I don't remember intimately the story. If I would have asked around and made sure that it was okay with whoever was still around at that time, I think I probably did that. But I remember having to do that update, and I don't exactly remember what the problem was with 1.3 versus 1.3.1. But I want to say that there was something subtly wrong with 1.3 that we had to do. I also remember that there was some stuff in that later stuff. I was a very big fan. Again, the same experience of I was a very big fan, and then not quite a developer, but every now and then I would just talk it over with a team member or two of the Last Man Standing mod. I thought that was the coolest thing since sliced bread. Calimer is the guy's name. His alias. His name is Mike Tomeno.
Okay.
And he's also on Facebook. I don't know if you've ever talked to him or anything. He's a great guy.
No, actually, I wasn't really. I was very keenly aware of what they were doing because they were doing like a cooperative thing.
Yeah.
And at one point we worked together to try to bring co-op play to our mod with them.
So it was he made a map. Oh my God, I don't even remember the name of this map, but it was like the coolest freaking thing that I had played in Doom 3 up to that point. Because I was definitely interested in something that I could like play again and again and again and again when I was shopping for mods is like not, oh, I'm really interested in how mods get made. Like just something that I could play and like not get bored of. And like I played the Doom 3 multiplayer, but there weren't a lot of servers or anything like that. There wasn't a lot of ways to play. Anyway, he made that map, and then that Last Man Standing was a cool sister project, I guess, because it nucleated in the same way. Like he made that map, people thought that map was cool and wanted to like do co-op with it, and then eventually that mutated into can we do co-op for all of Doom 3, and then like can we write our own maps for co-op, and just totally took off. And they had brilliant, their engine guys were just brilliant. Working on that stuff, and it's stunning actually to look back on that and see Doom 3 didn't have co-op and later got co-op written by people working at AAA studios that did basically the same stuff and probably in very similar ways, but they just rolled it for themselves anyway. At a certain point they had overtaken cdoom, I think, on the on the boards because there was a lot more replay value. I assumed, or maybe it was just a better thing. I don't know. Anyway, it was really cool, and I was a big fan of them. They were at number 1, we were at number 2, or vice versa, and I was still in touch with him. And I think there was an IRC channel for it or something. I've always been a big internet relay chat guy. I still am. I'm still on IRC.
Wow.
It's great. I love it. I actually got the job that I'm currently working. I got from IRC.
Wow.
But it wasn't so much of a thing for the Doom 3 community, but I think Last Man Standing had an IRC channel. Anyway, we must have been chit-chatting back then because I think players were coming to them and saying, co-op rules. You know what I want to play co-op? I want to play the classic Doom 3 maps with my friends. Like I want to load that up, and because that's something you could do in the original Doom. You could load up and play. That same John Romero anniversary thing, he talked about how they came up with like a cooperative deathmatch sort of thing where you'd play the level together on Nightmare or Ultraviolence, whatever setting. But you only get a point. You keep points between yourselves. You only get a point if you flick the switch at the end of the level. So the further you get through the level, the more you're going to start trying to kill your co-op partner. Because you want to be the one who flicks the switch. So it's like this like desperate last sprint to the switch because that's the only way you can get a point in this made up rule set. But through the rest of the level, you have to cooperate because it's really, really hard on Ultraviolence. Anyway, I think they approached us. I can't remember exactly how that worked, but I'm sure that me and Callum are talking to each other would have been part of that. And it wasn't a big deal. Like we didn't have to really make any changes. I think it was mostly just giving them permission to distribute. I think they distributed the maps. They may have distributed the project itself along with Last Man Standing. These details are very foggy now. Maybe
Yeah,
it was a thing. Maybe it was a thing where we just worked together to make sure.
They may have just given us code to use.
Possibly.
Yeah, I never played it in co-op. I mean,
I don't think I did either. Actually, despite like
I never played it in
a big fan of what they were doing and like paying attention to their releases and stuff. I never really played that. I played his little map and got to know the guy. I even had a T-shirt at one point that like said "Last Man Standing" because they made T-shirts for their team, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
And he was nice enough to send me one. It's like of all the T-shirts that I've ever lost, like band T-shirts, things like that I've lost, that's like top of the list of like, damn, that was a great shirt.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I used to have a Quake T-shirt that I swore I still had, but I went looking for it just the other day and I cannot find it, and I'm so pissed. Like I ordered a Quake T-shirt over the phone.
Oh man.
To id Software's store.
Yeah.
And the thing came and I was just swimming in it. It was like I was a scrawny 18-year-old, and like it was too big on me, but I wore it all the time.
Yeah. No, I had the same experience with a Quake 4 T-shirt because I think they had a T-shirt if you pre-ordered or something, and I was like, oh my god, they're updating Quake 2. Like, wait, I guess it is actually an update of Quake 2, in a way. But yeah, it was that same phenomenon of Doom 3 had come out, and I thought Doom 3 was the best thing since sliced bread. I didn't care what anybody's criticisms of it were, like, oh, flashlight dark, whatever. I was like, it's got per pixel hitbox stuff, and it's got dynamic lighting and all this. I was such a turbo, even back then, turbo nerd. But it was cool, and its legacy, I think, speaks for itself. It created a lot of concepts that we still see in games all the time. So
yeah. What else can I talk about with you?
How did we get onto the subject of Last Man Standing? Oh, we were talking about patching and updating. I do have an anecdote I guess I can share.
Oh yeah, please.
Because sometime back around then, I guess I saw myself as a steward of that part of it because nobody else was working on like doing the little engine patches or something. So I remember I definitely picked. I knew it was important for me to pick a license so that if I went away, somebody else could pick this up and keep this going. I didn't make a great choice. I chose the GNU public license, which I don't want to speak badly of the license or anything like that. It just wasn't the right choice for that project. And at the time, that wasn't a big deal because like whatever, we were giving away the mod for free. But years later, idTech 4 is now open source. You can just go download the source code to the engine, and it's under the GPL, and that's cool. Somebody made a port of it, Doom 3 spelled with an H. It's DHEWM 3, and that like runs on modern systems and stuff like that. And I think actually the Dark mod is based on it, which is like the most ambitious total conversion. The total conversion of Thief runs on that, and like that's how they were able to distribute. You can just get that game separately now. There's no like it's a mod or anything. You just get it. It's a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody reached out to me years after. I mean, it must have been a decade after the fact because it was definitely after they open sourced the engine, and then after Doom 3 was an extant thing. Somebody reached out to me and was like, "I want to port classic Doom 3 to this engine." So once again, I unilaterally, without trying to like get anybody's approval or permission or anything, I was just like, it was just for the source code parts, so I felt like I had the right to. And they were just like, we want to do this, but we can't use this license because it's incompatible with the license we're already using, which is one of the problems with the GPL. So they were like, can you relicense it to us? I was like, oh, absolutely, yeah. Like here, you have you have permission to use it under terms of this other license. Whatever it was necessary. But it's funny because it's one of those lessons that it taught me the value of not only choosing a license, which right away a lot of people making mods and stuff don't choose a license. That's terrible. You should, if you're making a thing, you should always hold the copyright. If you want other people to be able to use it and to make copies and distribute them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you need to pick a license. Absolutely, you just got to do it. And that soapbox I think comes from those days. or was instilled in me in those days.
Interesting.
But that wasn't necessarily the right choice, because it kind of, you have to use the GPL if you use the GPL works. If you're using somebody else's stuff that's GPL, you have to use GPL. Is kind of how it works. It's not quite that, but anyway, that's just a funny anecdote. Is once again, like a decade later, I unilaterally made a change to some of that software. I didn't change any of the code, and I don't think that person did either. But I never followed up on that to see, like, it must be out there that this person did it. But very cool.
So when it came to 1.3.1, from what Gaz was saying, Deadite came to him and said, hey, id Software made one definitive final update to Doom 3. It's 1.3.1. And I believe those two worked together on the final update.
That does sound familiar. Were we following the Doom 3 version?
Yeah. So the reason we,
because you said 1.1 and then 1.3, did we skip 1.2 because we just didn't do a release of the mod?
No, I'm looking at
that version.
I'm looking at my notes right now. I'm looking at my notes from my call with Gaz yesterday, and he said Snoop did 1.1 and 1.2. And I don't know if there were updates to Doom 3 between those, between 1.2 and 1.3.1. But the reason we called it 1.3.1 is because that's the version of Doom 3. Okay. We wanted to make sure that people understood. Like, if you've got this version of Doom 3, this is the version of the mod. The numbers line up. I think that was, that was that. I think, Deadite was definitely involved, because I think that he did the Mac OS builds, or it wasn't even called Mac OS at that point. I don't know. Okay. Maybe it was called something else. OS X, maybe it was still being referred to. Yeah. But I remember we had to distribute it, and I think I was handling the build that worked on Windows and Linux, but I couldn't do a Mac. Like, I didn't have a Mac or something, but he did. And so I think, and like was savvy enough that he was like, oh yeah, like I can build the dynamic library. I don't even remember the details. And to be honest with you, even though I do software development now, I'm kind of like, I don't know, Mac's its own thing, and I'm not developing for Mac. My employer doesn't develop for Mac, so like I'm not thinking about it very often. But I remember that he was responsible for the Mac build of cdoom. And it existed because of him, and I think it might even say that in some of our readmes from that time. I would have to go look at it. I totally did not know that at the time, and my recollection of Deadite was that he was just the sound effects guy.
Yeah.
And I remember he and I kind of locked heads a couple of times, locked horns, whatever, because he had recorded a bunch of sound effects and voice acting for the intro cinematic.
Oh my god!
And I listened.
I forgot about the intro cinematic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we later put a skip intro cinematic. Yes. Yeah, I clicked that. I mean, I spent months working on the sound effects and stuff for that, but I don't.
We had a lot of fun with it. I think I have no regrets about any of that.
Oh yeah,
it's funny what things I have completely forgotten that we thought were just like the coolest. Like, this is gonna blow everybody's minds. Like, we're doing like adding this stuff to. I think we wanted to add stuff to Doom that wasn't there. Like, we weren't just trying to take Doom and copy and paste it. We were trying to bring some of that updated sensibility. And a cutscene was sort of a natural choice because it doesn't change the gameplay at all, right?
Right. When id Software started making Doom, they thought they thought the engine was, this next gen 3D world, and they had what they called the Doom Bible.
Yeah.
And they originally wanted to have like an intro thing.
Yeah.
Where
they wanted it was going to be an Aliens movie originally.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted to do, and they were like, we're never gonna get the rights. It can't be Aliens. Have you read Masters of Doom?
Yeah, I've got it right back here.
Oh, okay, that's the hardcover. Okay, nice. I was wondering. I was like, because I see you got your CDs there, but I didn't recognize that. Yeah, no, just fantastic. The history there.
I also have these.
Oh, there's the boys.
But yeah, God, what was I?
We were talking about the cutscene and Deadite and you locking horns over the cutscene.
So Deadite, I have nothing against Deadite, but I haven't been able to track him down. Whether or not he's going to be involved in this documentary at this point is completely unforeseen. But yeah, I remember he and I didn't exactly get along because I listened to the voice acting and the sound effects that he had recorded for the intro, and it wasn't very good.
I think it was enough conflict that I remember. I don't remember the specifics, but I remember there being tensions on our internal private forum, like
Yeah,
our
okay.
part of the forums. I remember there being like seeing some of that headbutting and being like, get two sound guys, and they're audio guys, and you get them together, and they don't agree.
Yeah.
And, but
Well, I mean, I think you could listen to his voice acting that he had recorded with his friends, and you could listen to mine. The acting isn't great in either of them.
Yeah.
Because like I would be like at work talking about the mod with somebody, and they're like, "Oh, cool, that sounds awesome," and I'd be like, "Do you want to record
something?" Yeah.
Voices? And then he'd come over after work and record a thing. And I had a Halloween party, 2005. Had a Halloween party, and I said, "Okay, I need a crowd talking," and I brought everyone downstairs into my studio, and I said, just talk amongst yourselves, and I'm going to hit record. And I set up microphones around the room, and when they're like doing that briefing, and the guy is going to speak on the
I'm going to go pull this. It's got to be on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Somebody recorded it.
I think so.
Because I didn't try to track down the mod. I should have done that, actually. Intro. That's probably going to bring up. Yeah, director's cut plus deleted scenes. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, that's Brian Henderson's channel.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. So let me scrub through this a little bit here. Oh my, this is just. I have not. I'm going to be honest with you. I completely forgot we had the. That's how little of an impression it left on.
Well, what was crazy for me is seeing the deleted scenes, because I remember seeing that, and like so, and I'm not trying to go on a Deadite rant, but he had one of his friends saying, "Fire on those rioting civilians," and I was like, it was
the lore, man, lore. It's the Doom, because that's like that's his thing, right? It's like he punched his CO because I told him to fire on civilians or whatever. It's so funny looking back on that. But I definitely remember their tension, and I remember looking at this now is kind of jogging my brain. Oh my gosh, like the Halo boop 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 noise. This is just I'm playing this at like a very low volume here.
So I remember
I'm talking to you about it.
There was a script,
Oh yeah.
And I had to. I was like, okay, I have to record this, and this, and I got to the line where some guy yelled out, "That's bullshit," and I thought to myself, I can't yell this quietly into a microphone in front of my face. I need to really yell it out. So I set up my microphone across the room and just screamed, "That's bullshit," and I hurt my throat. Like it was hurt. Man. It was scratchy for a day after that. And what's funny is every time I watch someone playing the mod on YouTube, everyone laughs at that line. That's bullshit.
We just had I'm looking at this. Oh my god, the coffee cup dropping.
I broke a coffee cup doing the effect for that.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
the Foley is excellent. I will say that. Like I'm listening to it, I'm like, wow, that holds up. I remember, I think this is jogging a memory of being very frustrated by how hard the animations were to do.
Oh yeah.
Because this was there just weren't tools for doing a lot of this stuff if you weren't a studio. Oh my god, the message just on the screen. The production value. It's got that like you made a movie with your college buddies kind of vibe to it, and like that's not far off from what we were doing, right?
Yeah, Brian shared with me some of the ways I gave him access to the OneDrive folder where I'm collecting all the assets, and he uploaded a bunch of his just everything that he had from the project. So, maybe not everything, but he uploaded a spreadsheet, and I opened up this spreadsheet, and I'm like, this looks like time codes and like keyframes essentially for animations. And I asked him, like, what's that spreadsheet? And he said, that's how I had to do all the animations. Like, that is unreal. Now
Like,
we'd have like a
and it's-
mocap thing.
You watch it now and you're like, oh wow, that's really good of him in the dropship. It's very good, like getting jostled around. That's very good. But like knowing that and looking, if you played this and watched this cutscene, you would say like, wow, this sucks. And like that's not a dig because I was there. I remember like
Yeah.
this was hard work and it took
Yeah.
a long time. Like these 5 minutes were months and months and months of production. And yeah, I think there was a script because we were all like trying to figure out what it was we were trying to do, adding this cutscene to set up the story of Doom. And I guess we were trying to give the player the same feeling of what you got from if you read like the story that was in the deleted scene, or I'm sorry, I said deleted scenes and I'm looking at that. Oh, this is cool with the old, still got the Doom 3 Marine armor on, because I guess we didn't have the assets for that yet.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's funny.
I don't remember this. Maybe these were ones that I never saw. But yeah, I remember it was a big deal, and there was just something about that time in video games. Half-Life 2 had just come out, and like games were, the word cinematic was starting to show up in video games. Maybe not quite that early, but like that was definitely what was going on. And Doom 3 had done some of that too, right? Like it had
a little
fire on the rioting civilians.
That's the deleted scene. But like you can hear the
that punch.
The microphone was totally distorting. And,
oh yeah, that was just clipping like 80%. Oh my god, he's going off on him.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh, he's looking at that's his flashback to when he punched his CO. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember this this deleted content. Man. And I think we were just exploring that space. I had completely forgotten we even bothered with any of this. Because it's just like now nobody remembers classic Doom 3 because of the cutscene. Yeah. But I think we were high on our own supply, like really into what we were doing, and it was a passion project.
Brian Henderson is just like the nicest guy. I've just like with you I've been connected with him. We may have even been connected on MySpace. Like we've just I don't think I've ever fallen out of touch with Brian.
And was it Brian that did a song, or was that Deadeye?
No. So there was Brian Gocher who went by.
Yes, we had so many Brians. That's
I know.
I'm like, it wasn't Brian Henderson. We had so many Brians, and then like we had this trouble of trying to, and certainly after the fact, like usernames versus real names and trying to keep track. It's so. I'm really glad you're doing this, by the way, and thank you for doing this, because this is cool to put all of this stuff, into a record of some kind, because we were there and we don't even remember this stuff.
Yeah, right.
Especially, I think the fact that we were just organizing it all on a forum in our spare time really contributed to that. Like if this was our day job, I'm sure we'd have much stronger memories, and the stakes would have been a lot higher. Well, they were certainly very high for you, what you were saying about your marriage, but anyway, because I was listening to the soundtrack. I was listening to your playlist actually,
that's cool.
that you put together. So
nice.
Also thank you for doing that. And I think I think it's so awesome. Like it warms my heart every time I see you post. I don't go on Facebook a lot, but if I do and I see you post something or whatever, or if I just think about it, it's just like this has been a help to you as my read. Is that as a musician, this has been like a really helpful thing, because that music kicks ass and people want to listen to it. And then they're like, who's this Sonic Clang guy? And then it's like, oh, he has other music. I can listen to more of this stuff that's not Doom music.
I don't think if I would have really struck while the iron was hot, I could have gotten more popular. I probably could have just capitalized on it more, but I was really terrible at self-promotion. And I also didn't realize, which was funny because when we were working on cdoom, everyone kept asking me, right? I had people emailing me all the time. They would say, hey, are you familiar with Metroid Metal? So there's this guy who was remaking all the Metroid music in metal, like a metal form.
Yeah.
And so I tracked him down. I went to his website and you could buy his CD. And I thought, well, how is he doing that? That's copyrighted music. I never once thought to ask him, how are you selling this? But you can sell music as a cover. People have been doing this
because it's fair use, because it's transformative.
Well, no, you have to
or you have to get license from the original.
Yeah, kind of like with your code. You have to get now it's way easier. You can just go to CD Baby. There's easy song licensing.
Yeah, there's like clearance houses for a lot of that licensing.
Yeah. So that they handle the licensing for you. So now every time one of my songs streams, I get 0.003 cents.
Sure. Yeah.
And the original, like if it's a cover, the original author gets a chunk of it. But where was I going with that? I don't know. I can't remember. But
you were saying like if you had struck while the iron was hot.
Yeah. I probably could have generated more income, out of, because now I publish the songs on YouTube, and they don't have that many views, which is funny because I look at other people. So other people through the years had uploaded my songs to their YouTube channel.
And that's why you had done it, right? Is because you were just like, this is bullshit. Like, like these people are uploading the thing I made. Like and you were trying to promote. You had other stuff like to promote, and it's just like, damn, like those views and likes and subscribes and all that should be going to you because you put a lot of work into that stuff.
But it was my fault. Like I had a YouTube channel since 2006. I should have done that. I should have put those songs on YouTube right away. But I thought at the time I was like, well, why would someone go to YouTube to listen to music? That doesn't make any sense to me.
It was unthinkable. We just couldn't. We couldn't get there.
Yeah.
It's wild to look back on that because it was just the web was a different place. And then this new thing came out called Facebook, but you had to be a college student. You had to have a .edu to sign up. Yeah, that was weird. Like it feels like it's someone else's life when I think back to that time a lot of time because everything was different. Absolutely everything was different, and the fact that we managed to do what we did just blows me away. But in the vein of I'm really happy that it has had like a knock-on effect for you. There's a lot of other stuff I remember from the Doom 3 community doing that. I remember a few people got hired into game like studios out of the Doom, really cool. Doom 3 forums. There was somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody got hired to Treyarch, I believe. They were doing a lot. Wow. They were doing a lot of mapping, and I think it was Call of Duty 3 they worked on, like one of the first. I think it was the second or third level. I apologize, I can't remember exactly who this is or what, but I remember because they did like their post. It was a very public process that they were trying to get into the game development industry. They were making things because it was fun, but also they were aiming for a job in the development industry, and they made it. And it was like, then came back on the forums and posted like, I got a job. I'm going to be working at Treyarch. And then I think later posted like, I worked on this level in Call of Duty 3, that game that just came out that everybody loved because there's a dog in it and it bites you in a quick time event. More of that, like games turning into the thing that they turned into, but they were still figuring out a lot of the rules. And I remember that just blowing me away because everybody was an amateur and just brought whatever skills they had to it. And the community all was trying to lift each other up and do that. And it was cool. There were a handful of other people that got hired into development roles out of what happened on those forums. And so in the same fashion that I am very happy for those folks, I'm really happy for you that time, which to me was just me having fun and screwing around. There was no professional interest in it whatsoever, except after the fact as kind of like, I sort of tried the development thing. Maybe I didn't care for it as much. That there was this positive thing that just kept going and going and going more than fond memories and experience, skills developed, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's interesting because then I decided like 5 years ago I wanted to do some Quake 2 covers. So I covered Quad Machine, which was my favorite song in the soundtrack, and then I covered Descent into Cerberon.
Yeah. And
I specifically picked that one. That one wasn't necessarily my favorite song in the game or anything, but when Doom 2016 came out, God, what was the name of the guy? Mick Gordon? Was it?
Yeah.
Mick Gordon? Yeah, Mick Gordon. He played live at the Doom video or the video game awards.
Yeah.
And he had on a drummer and he was playing this like 9-string guitar. It was like ridiculous, and he actually had on the stage with him Sasha, the Sonic Mayhem guy.
Nice.
And for the most part, they were playing Doom music, but then they kicked into the Descent into Cerberon.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, everyone loves that now. So I decided I was going to cover that as well. And within the time span of like 2 months, I did Quad Machine and Descent into Cerberon.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing you posting about it.
Yeah, what you would, and I guess it's a good thing, but you would think that the classic Doom 3 music would be my most popular stuff. But if you go onto my Spotify artist page, Quad Machine has just under 200,000 streams now, and Descent into Cerberon is at like 150 or 160 or something like that. And then the next one down is E1M1. It might have 100,000.
Yeah. It's what you were saying before. Striking while the iron is hot. Like, there's definitely an audience out there, but it's like, how do you make them aware? Like, I'll whenever I get in on telling somebody about this, I'm just like, dude, you need to listen to this soundtrack. Like, go listen to this. This is great. Like, my buddy Brian made this soundtrack. It is awesome. Like, it is awesome in the way that Bobby Prince's music is awesome, because it's Bobby Prince's music, but it's this guy playing it and doing, a great job playing it with not MIDI instruments, but with instruments. Yeah. So it's a shame, honestly. It's the soundtrack deserves more credit than it gets, but I am glad that it's out there in the world, that people are still listening to it. That's cool.
It gets a fair amount of credit when people talk. Like, I was reading a review of the mod, and one of the reviewers said, because it was like mod of the month on modmdb.com or something like that.
I will also have to send you. I have a review from PC Gamer UK. I think I have a scan of a review from that. You may have it already, but
Gaz has that. But yeah, anyway, like, one of the first things the guy says is, what drives you forward is the music more than anything else. And I was like, oh, that's And what's funny is, like, if I were to remake that music now, one, it would take me like a quarter of the time, and it would sound way better. But I just happened, and I've thought a few times about, do I want to remake any of these songs? But then I'm stuck in this loop of, do I just constantly go backwards and remake the old stuff? Because what I did is I captured a moment in time. I was really playing those drums, even though I'm not really a drummer, and I really don't know how to record drums very well.
And that was a big deal for you doing the music. As I recall, you were posting about the drums, and like, those were the things that you were really trying to lock in for a lot of those tracks.
That was really hard. And not to mention, like, the fact that I tried building like a proper studio in my basement. So I had a control room with a big window, and then on the other side was the live room where the drums were. And if I screwed up the drums, I'd have to stop,
get up and go.
Control room, hit stop, undo, hit record, and I had to have enough space before the music started
to get back to the drums.
Run out there, get my headphones on. It was such a pain in the ass. And then I think it was maybe E1M3. I can't remember the name of the song, but the drums were like bum bum dum 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 dum. I got so fed up with those drums, I sampled my kit and used MIDI to trigger the bass drum and the snare. And then I still wanted to do the hi-hat. And God, I'm gonna have to like recreate all these stories when I get interviewed by Gaz. But I had to print out the sheet music for the hi-hat because it was so, like, Bobby Prince programmed it. He was probably clicking notes on a screen, but I had to like play it, and it wasn't. I don't know many drummers who would come up with the way that he was playing the hi-hat. So I had to print out the sheet music and put it on a music stand in front of me, and like, that was really hard. That was tough.
No, and I think that was like before people really started doing a lot of that, like studio at home too, right? Like that was right on that. It's just in so many ways that period in time when we were working on this thing, so much stuff was changing, and just so rapidly. And I think I maybe I'm misremembering this, but I remember doing that at home was a very different scale of what we have today, where it's like, yeah, you can do that, and like, here's how you do it. Like, here's a guide to how you do this. Back then, it was just kind of like people were figuring out what was going to work and how do you do this and all that. And I think you were sharing with us what it was like to go through that experience a little bit. You were telling us about the progress on your home studio.
Yeah. I never finished that studio. So 2011, my wife decided that she had had enough of me.
Yeah.
And we weren't a good match. And I had planned on staying in that house because I spent all that time building a studio, but it was never finished. Like the studio was never done. And 2012, I went through like dating, trying to get back into the dating pool. And I met who now became my wife. And there was no way she was going to live.
Very belated congratulations, by the way.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, and like we met and we were just like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to feel. Like you're not supposed to hate each other all the time. But yeah, there was just no way she was going to live in that house where I was married for 10 years. Like we needed to find a place that was our house, because that was always going to be my house. And what always sucked is when I was getting that house ready to sell, I finally finished like all the trim around the windows.
Of course.
Finally and like I've got pictures and videos from when I was done. And I thought, sure would have been nice to use it this way. Because like when I was doing...
Isn't that just the way though? Like as soon as you're done with it, it's time to...
Then it was done.
Oh, man.
So when I bought this house, I decided, no, I'm not going to build a studio in the basement, because by the time I started recording music in my last house, I realized I don't need a studio. I'm just freaking recording by myself. I don't need a live room with a big window. That's stupid. But I did want to finish the basement. And then one thing I took away from cdoom, if I can tie this into my life again, is...
By all means. I'm loving this. I'm getting all of this like Brian Klein lore that, because again, like, I feel like I know you, but also we don't interact a ton or anything like that. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I had a relationship with these people on the internet and they've largely scattered to the four winds. But this one guy I'm friends with and I talk to him every now and then, and he's doing great.
Yeah. So the thing I really took away from the classic Doom 3 mod was finish what you start. And also realizing that the first 90% of any project is the easy stuff. That last 90% is what's going to take the last 10% is going to take 90% of your time. Yeah. So when we moved into this house, I told my wife, I want to finish the basement, but I'm not going to start it until I'm really ready. And so I learned how to use SketchUp, and
nice.
I did a 3D design of the basement, and like we went through this iterative process where I was like, okay, this is the one way it could be. We could do it this way, and we were able to like move things around. It felt like I was doing game design again. And so when we finally had a design in SketchUp that we liked, like to the inch, then I started and I went and got all the materials, and I told my wife, I have to finish it. So I'm going to work on it until it is done. And I'm not going to like half-ass it. And it took 2 freaking years because I was working by myself. But I finished it. I had a vision, and I had to get there. And like I thought about cdoom a lot, because we could have easily just gotten to like 0.9 version and never really finished.
Yeah.
And
or like here's all the maps if you want to load them up and visit it like some sort of carnival or something.
Yeah.
Here they are, and like, there's monsters in it and you can shoot it, but you're not going to be playing Doom. But we had a vision in the same way you were just saying, and wanted to see that all the way through. And boy, it sure was the last 20% taking 80% of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
We spent a long time at the very tail end there before we got out that final release.
Yeah. Yeah. So we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe I think a couple of things before we go. One, I would like to put these interviews, maybe cut a little bit here and there.
Sure.
but I'd like to put the full interviews up on YouTube when I release the documentary, whenever that is. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, you have my permission for that.
Okay, cool. The other thing is maybe if I could just get one more time, like introducing yourself, your name, your screen name, just a little bit, so I have a proper
Yeah, absolutely.
good, because the mic before was really bad.
Just terrible. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it wasn't using that, and I'm sure it sounded atrocious, and I'm sure this sounds very good. So,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So my sorry. Hi, I'm James Gerity, also known as SnoopJedi. I worked on Classic Doom 3. I did the main menu and some of the engine programming for it, the secrets screen at the very end of levels, and a few other miscellaneous odds and ends. I used to do physics in a past life. I was a high school student actually working on Classic Doom 3, went on to study physics, and now I'm a software engineer here in Boston. How's that?
Cool. That was awesome.
Is
Yeah,
that
was
an
good.
acceptable, like,
Yeah.
kind of fell apart on me a little in the
Yep.
middle there, but
No, that's fine. That was good. And if I feel like I need to like dip into this well again of getting more answers from you,
dude,
well,
I would love to have another one of these chats, man. This is just I'm
Cool.
just like rolling in it, man. I have no shame at all about rolling in the nostalgia from this time.
Cool.
What a just magical time, at least in my life. But I feel like everybody who was part of the Doom 3, the extended Doom 3 community, especially, I would hope that the classic Doom 3 community has fond memories in the same way that I do. But the wider Doom 3 community, as far as I know, still lives on to this day on some other site as not the Doom 3 community, and probably not even IdTech 4 now. But I remember when when Doom 3 World went down, somebody, like, they moved to another site, and as far as I know, there are still a few people haunting that other forum that's not
That's cool.
particularly active. But
Well, you know
yeah.
what? Another thing that's interesting is I installed Doom 3, played Doom 3 on a PC for the first time in 15 years. And the first thing I did is I went into the options and I cranked all the settings as high as they could go, all the graphics settings, and I just thought I'm just going to see how this runs. And I don't even have that good of a video card in this machine, and it's like so smooth. It's like butter.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, back when we were making the mod, my computer sucked and I could just barely run it.
Yeah. No, I remember getting way into like the graphics options, and like you can do exactly this to turn this if you turn this level of detail down, like it's not super noticeable, but like it does degrade the quality, but it'll be a big performance boost and all of that stuff. It's like wish fulfillment to go back to a game like that and just be, yeah, ultra.
Yeah. So then one last question. I made a Discord server, and so far Gaz and Brian Henderson have joined me in there. Are you at all interested in
Yeah, absolutely. Send me an
joining
invite.
that?
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Awesome.
for sure.
What you want to just put your
Yeah, let
Discord,
me
or I can just send it. I'll send a link straight to either
yeah, if you can send
on
me an
Facebook.
invite.
Yep, I'll just send that. No
Yeah, if
problem.
you send me an invite link, if you send it here, it'll be probably a little bit quicker for me. But yeah, no, I would love to catch up with y'all on Discord.
Awesome.
Chit chat, and like I said, if you want to have another conversation about it, yeah, like I love talking about this stuff because it's just
Yeah.
there's so much to get into
Cool.
from that period. So
Awesome.
right on. Hey, thanks again, man, for doing this. I'm
Yeah.
really glad that you're putting in. I know that this is not a small amount of effort. Certainly tracking people down isn't a small amount of effort, and then all of the production stuff I'm sure you're going to have to do and any of that. So yeah, if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'm going to stop the recording.